Hey people, Personal Juice is back. Today I want to show you guys my new and improved Death Oath build. Please excuse the stuttering, I have no idea what's going on with GG servers, but for some reason when I was recording this video, my game was just lagging for the first 10 seconds of the clear and then got decent. Looks like PoE have been dying in more ways than you guys think. So, since my last video I have made a whole bunch of improvements, I have potentially increased my damage done in clear by 150%, so it's pretty insane. And I just wanted to show you guys and explain to you guys how this build works, because I feel like this is a contender to being one of the better builds for next league and this league, just because of how much potential it has. As you can see, I'm map clearing just fine, mobs are literally chained away from my screen. I can pretty much do all content that comes to mapping. I can do map bosses just fine. Maybe not Saris kills, because Saris is just complete cancer. If you guys ever played in melee against a Saris, you'd know that even if you have a very good boss and build, it's still very annoying to kill Saris. So I would suggest if you want to be able to kill Saris, just make a different build. Well, make an additional build. Make an additional build so you can have one build that is a pure mapper, like this one, and one more build that is a Saris killer. Because of how fast this build is, you should be able to farm Saris relatively... You should be able to spawn Saris relatively fast, and overall it's just an insanely good mapper. It has so much potential. This is not a min-maxed version of the build. I didn't want to min-max this build per se, because I felt like it would be disingenuous for me to show you guys a build that costs like 100 exalts, 200 exalts. We see so many builds that are insanely expensive and they only really get good once you invest like 100 exalts into it, and then they kind of get okay, and then you still have to continuously invest into that build. I feel like it is not possible for most people to play those builds, and in most cases those builds aren't really that good. In most cases I would say those builds are only good because of how much money you spend. I'm sure if you played Heavy Strike, you could make Heavy Strike feel good on a 200 exalt investment or 5 mirror investment. So it really does not make that much of a difference. As you can see, in a second I'll be killing Protoss, which is one of the most annoying bosses in the game. I usually skip the boss in towers, but since you guys were questioning my boss damage, I decided to show you guys how easy it is to kill a Maven tower boss for this build. This build is not by no means a bad bosser when it comes to mapping. It takes a lot less damage and does a whole much more. A Cultist by default takes 30% less damage taken from all sources because of their Cultist Ascendancy and because of presence. So as you can see, I have tanked a couple of hits, my HP didn't even move, so I think it has very good potential. Now if I wanted to improve my build even more, I could definitely sink maybe 100 exalts into this build and make it even more insane and even have better clear. I just chose not to. Again, no one wants to play an expensive build. That's why I like Mathel so much. Mathel has like cheapest builds possible, but they perform so well. It's just insane to me how good those builds are. And that's what I'm striving to do. I'm just trying to make a good build that can do all content, all mapping content, and doesn't cost you a leg and an arm. Now, let's begin. I'll show you guys why this build stands out so much from normal builds. I know you guys all have seen Death Oath by itself, but I feel like this spin on a all beloved build has given us a lot of more opportunities and overall just a better version of the build. So the main reason why we have this build as good as it is Herald of Ash. What Herald of Ash does is whenever you kill an enemy, the overkill damage down to that enemy carries on to other enemies. So let's say if you have an Explodey, and you Explodey that overkills a mob, which it pretty much always does, you'll have that damage carried over to other mobs, and they'll continuously explode, creating a chain of explosions. Now, I have done this build on a known small map, like I have done it on Tropical Island, I have done it on Glacier. This build performs just fine on those maps. we have enough ink AoE to where even open layouts, even bigger open layouts are just fine to clear. You'll have no problems at all clearing them. It'll be faster than, I'd say, most builds, especially when it comes to projectile builds, because a lot of those builds struggle from having obstacles stop the damage, but this build doesn't have those problems because it just chains off itself. I have done Delirium 80% Delirious on this build. I would say Delirium by itself isn't really that good anymore. At least I'm not enjoying it. I have been farming Delirium for the past 2 years. I feel like it's a bit underwhelming, at least in this league. But it's definitely possible. I'm definitely sure you can make this build and you can scale this build to have 100% Delirium viable setup. Now, apart from Hardavash, I have made a whole bunch more improvements, and I'll show you guys in POB just about what kind of improvements I've made. So I think the biggest spin and the biggest reason why this build has so much potential this league is because of Glorious Vanity and because of this cluster of different notables. We have a lot of potential to have a lot of damage just in this cluster, but you don't really have to invest too much money into it because all of those notables are fairly common. I'll show you guys what you should be looking for. It's pretty simple. All you're really looking for is Commanding Presence. Commanding Presence increases our area of effect for auras. Death Oath is an aura, and all of our curses are also auras. And you're looking for Withering effect, Ritual of Shadows. What Ritual of Shadows does is it inflicts Wither whenever you hit an enemy, so every one of your explosions is a hit, because we have Hardavash, we have Occultist Explodey, and we have Asnats. That is a triple hit. So per monster that you kill and that explodes, you'll have roughly at least one Withering stack. Now, every stack of Wither increases damage taken by monsters by 6%, so it's at 6% more damage, and we have in stacks up to 15 times. So in theory, if you have a big enough pack, you literally have 90% more damage done to that monster just because of explosions. I feel like that's insane. It has so much potential when it comes to delirious maps and other content. Now, I got very lucky on this Glorious Vanity. I got very, very lucky on this Glorious Vanity, to be fair. So we have 1 Ritual of Shadows, 2 Ritual of Shadows, and 3 Ritual of Shadows, increasing our damage by a whole ton. Now, you don't have to have gotten this lucky as I am. I have spent maybe 5 exalts in Divines, just divining my Glorious Vanity. It wasn't that difficult, but I would suggest if you have the money, just look for 1 Ritual of Shadows and at least 1 Commanding Presence, and you'll be more or less good. Now, my current Glorious Vanity for some reason also have increased fire damage on 2 notables, so my Hardavash does even more damage, but again, my first video, I did not have this Glorious Vanity, so the build is 100% viable. Otherwise, you don't have to have as good as a Glorious Vanity as I do, but just some fun way of making the build even better than it already is. Now, I'll show you guys kind of what I have done and how I have improved the build a little bit, apart from Glorious Vanity and Explosions. So what I have done is, instead of having more aura effect and more damage, I have decided to just scale all of my AoE. So we have Assert Dominance, which gives us 25% more area effect whenever we kill 5 enemies, and we obviously kill 5 enemies in maps because how maps work. And effectively I was just scaling as much area effect as possible, just so my explosions can explode beyond my screen and I can kill monsters in every corner. I feel like this is one of the most important parts of this build, because you don't want to scale speed until you have enough AoE to where your AoE can kill the half the map by itself. The whole purpose of this build is just explosions and fast and easy map clear. Now, I could have had Headhunter on this build. Headhunter does help us a lot. If you guys didn't know, Asnats does scale from a Headhunter because we have a lot of physical as fire, physical as cold, or physical as chaos on Headhunter mods. But I haven't done that, and plus the move speed is obviously insanely good for a build like this. So we can have an option to make this build a lot faster, a lot better. I just don't feel like I have to have a Headhunter to make this build look good. I feel like this build by itself looks just good enough, and if you so choose, you can obviously improve the build. Now, I have kind of went beyond the normal and natural way of this build. I have made some improvements. What I was doing is I was converting physical damage to chaos damage, so Asnats does a lot more explode damage and explode scales, because every explosion from Asnats, every explosion is about 3% physical damage per monster, and which becomes like 1.5% chaos damage scaled by a whole bunch of multipliers, effectively making our every one of our explosions do like a million DPS damage by itself. I have had maps where I was killing bosses before I could even see them, in open maps like Tropical Island or Park, just because of those explosions. It is a very good way of making your DO do a whole bunch more damage, but if you're struggling on damage, on boss damage, and if you like need a bit more, you can just go ahead and go for additional withering effect if you so choose. It will increase your damage by a whole bunch, but because of how much damage I currently have, I didn't feel like I really needed to scale my single target damage. I would much prefer to have more clear. Now, additionally to Asnats, I have chosen to go for Sin's Rebirth. Sin's Rebirth gives us Unholy Might. What Unholy Might does by itself is it gives us 30% of physical damage as extra chaos damage. So effectively have an additional conversion, in a way, of our Asnats. So we have 30% more damage on Asnats, and that damage is being scaled by Wither and Chaos. Effectively, we're gonna have almost double, if not triple, the Asnats damage. So we'll have insane explosions, and I feel like it's the easiest way of scaling the build. As you can see, we have roughly 2 million DPS on DO itself. I would say it's good enough for killing pretty much any boss in the game. That comes to when it comes to mapping again, you do want to map. This is not a bossing build. I have done Delve. On this build. I got to 600 depth this league, just playing DO. I have done Delirium. I have done Simulacrums up to wave 27, I believe, back before I decided to improve my build this much. So there are still options to make this build better. But I'll just show you guys what kind of gear I have. It's pretty simple. Ones, we have increased damage over time, increased damage, chaos damage, and we have chaos damage multiplier. Pretty easy. You're looking for an enchant for more AoE, obviously, and other than that, you don't really need anything else. Having more life on wands would be insanely good, but I bought those wands for 50 chaos. I'd say it's worth 50 chaos. You definitely shouldn't be using any wands that are more expensive than that, unless you really want to. And those wands are very cheap this league, and no one really plays this build except for us. So yeah, most of this gear is gonna be very cheap. I'll go over it, but you're looking at about 15 to 20 exalts of investment if you so choose to play this build. Now I have Victory Crown, which gives me so my actual helmet, I'll show you guys, is a bit different from what I have in my POB. My POB helmet is having chaos damage, additional chaos penetration, which I don't currently have because I'm poor and because I just didn't choose I didn't choose to go for that more than DPS per boss. As you can see, my helmet is mostly garbage. I found this helmet on the floor. It has a pretty nice enchant for some mosquito bots have increased area effect. Pretty good enchant, not must have for sure. You can go for like a despair effect if you so choose, or malevolence, mana reservation. If you get malevolence mana reservation, I believe you can have an additional aura. As you can see, I'm currently missing determination. Usually what I do is I take off my aspect of the spider because I don't feel like I really have to have it, and I just use determination instead. It's just a bit more damage. I feel like I don't really need aspect of the spider that much. I would much prefer to die less, and I don't really die that much on a build, but it does have its moments. I do have 3.7 thousand HP, so sometimes a Beyond boss can mess me up, but for the most part, it's a pretty safe build, I would say. Continuing on, we obviously have Death Oath. Death Oath makes the build work. This is our main damage source. All you're really looking for on it is just get as many attributes as possible, because this build is sometimes attribute starved. So as many attributes and as much life as you possibly can get on Death Oath. Usually this chest costs like 5 chaos. You don't have to have it 6 linked at all. The build works just by having gems in the chest. So as you can see, I don't have any of my links. We don't really need those links. You get the benefit by just socketing in the gems, so no links are necessary. Continuing on, Asnod's Touch. Asnod's Touch is going to be our main source of explodies, apart from Occultist's explodie. So what are you looking for? If you so choose, if you decide to go for more damage and more clear, if you have a whole bunch of money, I would suggest getting +1 curses on your 3, which is Whispers of Death. You only have to spend 3 points, and I feel like getting additional curse would be insanely good if you have the money for it. And I would go for Enfeeble and Despair on hit. Now, if you have Despair on hit, it'll increase your map clear by roughly additional 70%, just because of how your auras work and how your curses work. You do want to have a lot more, like Despair is going to increase the damage done by you by a whole bunch. But unfortunately, at the time of this recording, Despair for some reason costs 40 exalts. Despair implicit on Asnod's costs 40 exalts, which I don't think is a fair value. But if you have the money, go for it. It's an insane improvement. Having a Feeble will make you a lot tankier, so you die even less. But if you're poor like me, just buy Asnods. It's like 1-2 exalts, I think. It's definitely gonna pay off for itself in the long run. Now for my boots. I do have Onslaught boots, which I spent a whole bunch of money on. I didn't feel like it was necessary at all. Onslaught doesn't really give you that much more move speed. At least Onslaught effect on boots wasn't giving me that much effect. I would suggest just going for life and move speed on your boots. That's what I'm gonna do next. My boots are kind of a debate, honestly. What I'm using right now is this, which gives me Onslaught on kill, movement speed if you haven't been hit recently, and move speed if you have Onslaught. Now that's about 25% additional move speed, which is good, but honestly, it's not worth the money I spent on those boots, and I would suggest not going for those at all, unless you literally have so much currency that you just don't care anymore. Continuing on, we have Presence. Presence gives us less damage taken whenever we kill a rare enemy, which is always. So you have additional 15% damage reduction, which I was talking about. It makes our Despair have no reservation costs, which allows us to socket in Enhance, Empower, and stuff like that into Despair, making it even more powerful. Now, Despair is going to be one of our main damage increases. Despair does benefit us a lot. It decreases enemies' chaos resistance by up to 40%, I believe. So this is what you want to get. If you have the money, getting +1 curses in Presence is going to cost you about 10 exalts, which is a very, very good investment, but it is very rare. So it's up to you if you want to go for it. But I'm too lazy to look for it, so in Presence by itself is just fine to me. My rings, I'm using low light rings, which give me chaos damage as implicit. Again, not necessary. You can go for any rings as long as they give you life and resistances. You do want to copy resistances, so just get some life and res. Those cost maybe 5 chaos each. not that much of a big deal. So yeah, for my belt I went for Hunter Stygian Vice for more life. This belt cost me about 5 exalts. It was expensive. You don't have to go for the increased maximum life, you can just go for flat life. Stygian Vice, which is gonna cost you maybe an exalt. Honestly, it depends what kind of belt you're looking for. I do like having a bit more tankiness and not like dying that much, so I have decided to spend some currency on this belt. So for the Abyssal Jewel, I went for Corrupted Blood. You can choose any mod. For some reason, Corrupted Blood jewels have been kind of expensive this league, so mine is pretty much garbage. But if you so choose, you can go for like Onslaught effect or just getting more life on your Abyssal Jewel. From Flasks, pretty simple: life, sulfur for more damage, Sin's Rebirth for Unholy Might, Granite for more armor, and Quicksilver for more move speed. Pretty simple, self-explanatory. Now I'll show you my clusters. I'm using one Megalomaniac, which gives me Assault Dominance for more AoE, and Wish for Death, which gives me Calling Strike. Now you can choose whatever you like, you can replace it with something else. I do like my Calling Strike, not a necessary improvement, I would say. You're probably much better off just buying something like a area damage cluster, and you'll be just fine. But if you so choose, you can go for a similar Megalomaniac. For my medium clusters, I've chosen Flow of Life, gives you more life, and it gives you more damage over time. Again, not necessary, those are kind of expensive, I think they're about 1 exalt each. So you probably can get away with just getting more flat chaos damage on your clusters. For my minor cluster, I chose Master of Command, which gives us a little bit more area aura effect. Probably not worth the investment. I would say probably getting a just a normal jewel will be easier and will save you a whole bunch of points. But I have to do some research on how this actually is gonna work out. Maybe it is worth still to get Master of Command for more aura effect. Maybe it's not. I'll leave it up to you. For the rest of my clusters, is effectively the same thing. Just getting more chaos damage, getting more chaos damage over time, and getting one more Assert Dominance. From what I know, Assert Dominance has a cap of 2 applications, so you can only have 2 Assert Dominance clusters, which gives you 50% more AoE. If you have enough AoE, at some point you'll have your Withering step have covered the whole map, which is insanely good for us, and that's what kind of you're looking for, but again, not necessary. And the rest of the build is pretty much similar. I'm using Watcher's Eye for more damage from Malevolence. It's a small increase in damage. I feel like it's probably not even worth the investment, because my normal jewels, which I bought for 1 exalt each, give me effectively the same damage at a lower cost. Now for my skills, I'll just quickly go over it. It's pretty simple. Malevolence, level 21, and you want to have Quality on Malevolence, because Quality gives us more area effect, so you have more coverage and damage. You have Summon Skitterbots for Chill effect and Shock effect, Determination for more armor, Molten Shell, because we're stuck in armor, I suggest going for Molten Shell, or you can go for custom damage taking Steel Skin if you so choose. It's up to you, honestly, just a defensive layer. Defiance Banner gives us more armor. Withering Step, I have chosen to go for Anomalous Withering Step, which gives us more effects of Wither debuffs. Again, not that much of an improvement because mobs are gonna die far away from you, so in most cases this doesn't actually work as well as you'd like it to be. So, but it's still a nice improvement, and it costs pretty cheap. I think it's like 10 chaos each. Life Tap. So we need Life Tap to apply to link to our Death Oath. So how it works is whenever you have an instance of Life Tap, all of your skills that have Life Tap socketed in them, like our Death Oath, are gonna benefit from Life Tap. So effectively what we're doing is we're making it so Withering Step applies Life Tap. It has to be below 1. so it always applies. And we make increasing duration to where you'll continuously have life up and you'll continuously have increased damage from your death oath. Now, I went for Awakened Crystal effect. You'll see it a lot in my build because I do feel like having more AoE is almost always better. You don't have to go for Awakened. Awakened costs, I think 70 chaos or 50 chaos at this point. Pretty cheap. But you can just drop this link if you so choose. It doesn't actually benefit us that much. Blood Rage gives us frenzy charges. This build does benefit from frenzy charges. I believe it's about 10% more damage. Oh yeah, roughly like 100,000 DPS just from frenzy charges. Pretty good improvement. I don't see many people using it for some reason, but it is a very good investment to have Blood Rage. Then we get Despair, Enhance, and Blasphemy. Blasphemy applies our Despair for us. Again, Awakened Blasphemy doesn't actually benefit you that much. It's, I think it's a 10% more area effect, which you don't really need. You're much better off going for Despair Gloves, but if you so choose, you can go get Awakened Blasphemy. Obviously, Head of Ash, already went through this. Enhance, increased area effect for more coverage. And it looks like this is it. I would say this build has a lot of potential. I would say this build has a very unique playstyle that I used to love in 5BV, but since 5BV got nerfed in so many ways, and it's so expensive, and most builds are so expensive that I don't feel like playing the game to save up for a 100 exalt build or 200 exalt build. So I just prefer to play a cheap build that does the job, does it really, really well, and I would say it's way better than most builds that I've played this league and last league, and yeah, I think I'll continue playing this build in every league. I'm going from being a cock, Ice Nova only player to playing a Death Oath, because I do see potential. I know a lot of people on Reddit especially don't believe in my builds, even though I haven't invented self-poison cock Ice Nova. But you know, it's not gonna be recognized until I'm showcasing it and until more people are playing it. You guys will see it has a lot of potential. You have the room to invest into this build and make it even better if you so choose. And overall, probably the best mapper. Give it a shot. It's super cheap, and I promise you'll enjoy your time. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you next one. Peace, y'all.